I'll turn this on. Good evening and welcome to the March 25th regular board meeting of the Wenatchee School District. We will open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Esto juntos se lleva a cabo en inglés, pero contamos con servicio de traducción. Si alguien gusta hacer un comentario público o recibir explicaciones en español, por favor, indique su necesidad. All right, we're now going to work through the agenda. Board, are there any proposed changes or modifications? All right, hearing none, we'll go to the consent agenda. So items on the consent agenda were sent to the board and posted online last week. The board has had the opportunity to review the materials and ask the superintendent any questions they have about any items on the consent agenda. The consent agenda for this meeting includes minutes for the March 11th regular board meeting and the March 17th board workshop, vouchers and payroll, personnel report, surplus report, contracts, field trips, asset preservation program report, policies to retire, reinstate. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
All right, has been moved by Julie and seconded by Miranda. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor of adopting the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries. We'll now move on to the citizen comment. If any member of the public would like to make a citizen comment, please sign up online 15 minutes before the meeting or complete a citizen comment form. Forms are available at the room's entrance and should be turned in to Board Secretary Kim White. English and Spanish speakers will be allowed 3 minutes of comment time with additional time allowed for translation. Ms. White will keep a timer that will notify you when your time expires. Please be aware that the board's role is to receive comments. They will not respond to questions or challenges, and the board's silence does not signal agreement or endorsement of the speaker's remarks. Kim, I'm turning it over to you.
Okay, our first one tonight is Christy Delosier.
Good evening. My name is Mike Parrish, and I am the president of the Wenatchee Greater Wenatchee Youth Soccer Club. And the rec club consists of really the Wenatchee School District and the East Wenatchee School District. We run 2 seasons in spring and in fall. And these seasons comprise kids going to U5 to that U14 in rec. Rec means that, every kid plays, we try to get on a team, both girls and boys. And in this location, we have a rondo, even down to Malaga and into Rock Island too, with kids in the East Wenatchee School District too. In the spring, it's kind of funny because all the games are played in Wenatchee. And we've always thought this has been a fabulous thing because in the rec league, we also play with Kashmir and with Leavenworth. And Wenatchee's been a fabulous opportunity for us to grow the game of soccer. We're talking 1,000 to 1,200 kids. That's like 3,000 families. And between Foothills being kind of the hub of that activity, it's created kind of a central rec soccer environment for all the kids and families. It's really tough in Leavenworth. And for Kashmir to try to go all the way into East Wenatchee, a lot of days because we're playing games that start right at 6, and then the last game starts a little after 7. And so time crunch, even when you switch to, the new time zone, the new time frame, it starts to get really crunched for time. But the community has now been hit with these charges of fields. And it started this last year in 2024, and we're like, okay, let's see where this goes. And fall was, I want to say it was around 8 to 10. It was less than $10,000 because then we go to Walla Walla at the PUD where we've had no charges to this date. But then in spring, recently, the bill came in, the invoice for over $20,000. We had no idea this bill was coming. It's been a hit to our budget. We try to put the Greater Wenatchee price for kids at a price point that families aren't in a hardship to play. We seek sponsors for all the kids for the team so they can get their shirt. And remember, we're playing with Cashmere and Leavenworth that they don't charge for the fields either. So it's putting us a really competitive disadvantage to keep at a price point that's going to be effective for these kids that are playing. And it's a lot of families, not just one kid, it could be to 2 to 3 kids. And we've seen a really increase in the girls' participation. And I just don't want to see this affect the girls' sports too. They get impacted. Well, now we're going to have to let Chico play and not Mija. Because it's going to come down where if this continues, where it's going to put a real predicament on families, even with the sponsorships we give.
Mike, that's your time. But
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Parrish, were you scheduled to speak also? And did you want to use the remainder of your time? So you're next. Okay.
Mike Parrish up again. Thank you, Christy. Where I was going with this, and I made a few notes here that I kind of wanted to follow, that kind of lead segue into my other nonprofit groups that are going to speak today. I've worked with these groups and a lot of you in this community for over 15 years as part of the board in different capacities. In the last 12 years of being president, we've tried to put this soccer program in a healthy economic situation where we are today, where we're currently planning to develop fields, to look to partner with schools, look to partner with our other nonprofits to expand the game, to expand really the fields, because in our growing area, there are fields that are that's happening in the area, both in Quincy and in East Wenatchee. We have fields scheduled for practices for our East Wenatchee kids. They do not charge, but yet now Wenatchee is charging the kids, double hitting the families that live in this community with another tax burden, not only for the tax, but then to come, eventually it's going to pass into the sign up the fee soccer too. At the same time, there's been inflation in everything, getting the uniforms, the equipment, and all that has been inflation. So ultimately, I'm hoping that we don't have a pay to play, that we keep this at an economic threshold that's viable and still grows the love of the game for soccer. I think it's our obligation to speak to you, to bring the awareness that we want to work with you. We want to support field development. I've seen these fields detour and get worse and worse with holes. I've seen volunteers would go out with sand and pour sand with seed and try to fill the holes. Not only is it a risk for some kids in some of these different fields, but also for the referees that are out there learning the game, at youth referees that start for the U8 games, to the adult, mid-youth and adult referees that are coaching, they're reffing the older games. Ultimately, what will be the backlash? All these volunteer parents, eventually, if they see these increasing charges, they're going to say, why? Well, why would it be when I'm already living in Wenatchee and I pay my taxes for having these fields and have the use of them? Should there be something? Yes, maybe what it should be, I don't know. But I do know that under communication and working together as a team, we can find a win-win situation. Thank you for your time and for hearing me speak to you about this.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Cindy Abuamo. Let's hope I didn't wreck that one too bad.
So I am affiliated with 2 different youth soccer clubs. I am the registrar for Greater Wenatchee Rec Youth Soccer and the president and director of operations for Wenatchee United Youth Soccer. And we're kind of tag teaming here with what we're talking about. So my portion that I wanted to talk to you today about, part of it is the billing, the way that the billing is structured. It's not itemized. So what happens is, for our facility use, we get this invoice that has the total amount due, and we don't know what it's for. It'll just say, this is for Foothills, or this is for Applebowl, and it doesn't break it down. So that makes it really difficult for us to understand what each charge is for and how it adds up to the final number. I did reach out to the school district about this, and they told me that the new billing system that you guys are using does not allow to put a bunch of information on there. And that's why it's not itemized. This also makes it very difficult for financial planning, because we need to be able to see the breakdown. When we're doing the reservation and we get the reservation confirmation, we also don't see a breakdown. We just see the final cost. So that's something that I'm hoping that you guys can improve on, to help us know more of like, what are these charges for? How does this break down? The other thing is the scheduling system that you guys are using now. Every single time we request a facility, we have to upload our ID and our insurance certificate every single time. Whereas the Eastmont system, we upload the insurance certificate once for the entire year. So it's much more difficult for us to request facilities. I think that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Osborne.
First of all, I want to thank you on behalf of all the youth sports organizations that are here tonight for the opportunity to address the new fees and facility use charges assessed on these groups. You know, every nonprofit organization here strives to provide the best possible programs to create an environment where kids have the opportunity to thrive and learn life skills through sport. Costs are kept as low as possible to ensure every child has the opportunity to play. And this is achieved through the selfless work of hundreds of volunteers who commit thousands of volunteer hours, as well as the generous support of the local business sponsors. These nonprofit club programs are the foundation of our school district's athletic programs. Without the hard work put forward by all these organizations, our school district athletic programs would have nowhere near the success that they have today. In addition to the number of volunteers and hours they commit to support the kids of our valley, every organization has a scholarship program to help kids participate who otherwise wouldn't be able to. The organization I'm representing, Wenatchee FC Youth, has over 500 kids playing competitive soccer, having to travel all over the state, region, and country to compete. In the last 3 years alone, we've managed to give away over $100,000 in scholarships and waivers, just so aspiring kids could have the opportunity to play and compete. Adding the additional burden of field fees without any warning, discussion, or negotiation is going to bankrupt these longstanding community betterment youth organizations, ultimately impacting and limiting opportunities for our kids. We're grateful that we have the use of the district's facilities and understand it takes money to maintain them. However, the more people I speak with about the issue we're addressing here today, their question back to me is, isn't that what our taxes pay for? Our taxes paid for that in the past, and why don't they pay for that now? Our taxes haven't gotten any less. There is a sense of that fee assessment is a double dipping on taxpayers whose children walk the halls of our schools and participate in school athletics as well as club sport. It seems to me that we should have more of a collaborative relationship instead of one that is being driven from the top down. If we need to solve the problem of maintaining our facilities, maybe administration should take the time to sit down with all the stakeholders to entertain ideas and formulate a plan that is reasonable, sustainable, and collaborative. All of us are willing to pitch in and do what we can in addition to the taxes we pay to help maintain, maybe even redevelop our existing facilities so everyone benefits and thrives. So I just want to say thank you. I look forward to your response and working with you to move things ahead so everybody wins. Thanks.
Thanks.
Mark Hambleton.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you guys for your generous donations to our community as leaders. My name is Mark Hamilton. I'm the president of the Wenatchee Valley Lacrosse Club. I guess Our communities of youth sports organizations and groups that provide vital opportunities for kids to grow, to compete, to build lifelong skills are being placed at risk due to recent increases in facility use fees. These changes were made without transparency, without stakeholder engagement, and without a clear plan for reinvestment. This is not just a budget issue, but a fairness issue. A decision of this magnitude should have been made with the input from those directly affected. Instead, the new fee schedule was implemented without prior consultation with the very organizations that rely on these facilities. I feel as though there was no proactive communications with community organizations, and to this day, no shared methodology explaining how these rates were determined. This lack of transparency erodes the trust and leaves our organizations scrambling to adjust to the changes they were not even given a chance to discuss. The financial burden placed on the local sports organizations is staggering. For example, for our club, last year we got the Apple Bowl for $100 for practice. This past fall, we had a bill for $270 for the same amount of time. It's just burdensome, and we're not budgeted for that. We're a very small club. And it's not just lacrosse. As Mike talked about, Wenatchee soccer, rec soccer, a bill of over $20,000. I've heard Wenatchee Wrestling, Greater Wenatchee Babe Ruth, Wenatchee Valley Baseball Club. They're all struggling with similar cost increases. These hikes are forcing organizations to either dramatically increase membership fees, which places unfair financial burdens on families, or finding alternative venues outside of our community. With such a drastic fee increase, one would expect a corresponding improvement in field conditions and facility upkeep. This has not happened. Grass fields and other facilities remain in poor condition, raising serious concerns about child safety, as well as where is this additional revenue going? If these fees are truly necessary, there must be a transparent plan for reinvestment, one that benefits the organizations paying these fees. It's not about the numbers on a balance sheet. It's about the future of youth sports in Wenatchee. It's about keeping programs accessible, keeping kids engaged, and ensuring that community organizations are treated fairly. These sports programs are the heart of our community. They foster teamwork, discipline, and a love for life. But these unsustainable fee increases remain in place. Many of them will struggle to survive. Let's work together to find a solution that is fair, transparent, and one that supports rather than burdens the organizations that serve our kids.
Thank you.
Norm Armstrong.
Thank you, school board members and Superintendent Kalahar. On August 16th, 2024, the United States Supreme Court unanimously agreed that Title IX is intended to protect the rights of biological girls to fair academic and sports opportunities. On January 9th, 2025, a federal court in Tennessee versus Cardona ruled that all 50 states would return to the original meaning of Title IX, that the term sex means biological sex and not gender identity. On February 5th, 2025, an executive order states under Title IX of the Education Amendments Act of 1972, educational institutions receiving federal funds cannot deny women an equal opportunity to participate in sports. Thus, it is the policy of the United States to rescind all funds from educational programs that deprive women and girls of fair athletic opportunities. On February 7th, 2025, OSPI Director Chris Reichdahl sent a letter to Washington State school districts urging school board directors not to comply with the executive order to protect the rights of girls and women to fair competition. Failure to comply with Title IX is likely to cost Washington schools, well, here's a conservative number, $300 million. I've heard much higher, per year in loss of federal education funding. Existing Washington state laws and policies that do not comply with federal Title IX laws and policies do not and cannot override federal laws such as Title IX. You, our local school board, unpaid, by the way, unpaid members, are the front line of defense against unlawful state government overreach. We're asking you, our Wenatchee School Board, to comply with federal Title IX by immediately ending males and girls sports, males and girls locker rooms, and males and girls bathrooms. Thank you. I sent a Washington State proposed school board resolution to comply with Title IX, so you should receive that. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. All right, sounds like that's all. Thank you guys for coming. If you want to, generally, I'll now give you the chance to leave, unless you want to stick around. Lots of exciting stuff. All right, now I will turn it over to Corey Callard for special presentations.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Special presentations tonight. We're beginning with our ASB updates. So do we have representation from Westside? Well, let's do it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Layla Ornelas, and now I'm co-president of our leadership club at Westside High School. And I'm here to tell you guys what's happened since last month I saw you guys. So currently, everyone at our school is going to be a broken record until we have our spaghetti feed and silent auction on May 15th. So make sure you guys mark your calendars. We are still looking for donation items for gift baskets. So if you guys know anything, please call our school and tell them that you guys have things you guys are willing to donate. Hopefully we can entice you to come with good food, live music, silent auction, and a live student art auction. And our leadership is still working on prom, and we are very excited to bring disco funk to Westside, which will be happening on May 9th. We are excited to have our usual amazing DJs from JC Entertainment, as they do it for free every year for us, which we are extremely grateful for. April 24th is our next Wellness Day. We are super excited about this one, as we are partnering with Consumer Jungle, which is a local nonprofit that focuses on financial literacy for youth. And Miss Sheena, who is our personal finance teacher, she is going to create an all-day fictional financial simulation called Sheena Town. Students will receive a persona to complete with family income, family, and a budget. We will have to pay our own bills at various stations and will receive some life happens cards like flat tires, broken washer dryers, speeding tickets, etc. When we get a life happens card, we will have to adjust our budget accordingly. At the end of the day, students will return their money they have left and be entered into drawings with prizes courtesy of Consumer Jungle. This brings us to the end of our update. Do you guys have any questions for me?
How'd you come up with disco funk? I love it, but I'm just
So,
wondering.
We had so many ideas for
lived it.
prom.
Yeah.
We had so many different ideas for prom, and we all did not know what to do. We had a real carnival idea. We had another, I know Wenatchee is doing a night in Greece, and we had a similar idea to that, but we really wanted something to be different. And then we did have a student say, hey, let's do disco. And our Miss Sheena loves disco, so we all kind of combined two ideas. So Decades Disco Funk is kind of what we came up with. And everybody in class seemed to really like it, so we just kind of rolled with it.
Thank you. I love it. Thank you.
And I'm really pleased you're working with Consumer Jungle. I've heard great things about that program, and I think it is perfect timing. Congratulations on putting it on.
Thanks, Layla.
So thank you guys.
Thank you. I'm not seeing our normal ASB representation. No, Maya's here, but probably not to give us an ASB report, right? Okay, she's here representing the Superintendent's Advisory Council, so I'm glad you're here and nice job. And Romeo and Juliet, that was wonderful. Okay, so we will conclude our ASB reports and we'll move on to Marcy Horner's in the house. And we are excited that Marcy's here with us. She was here about a year ago, right? And at that point, it was Davis Demographics. This year it's MGT. So maybe some rebranding in that house there a little bit. So
Yep,
I like
yep.
the representation here on the.
Thank you,
Yes.
thank you. It's a little warm for it, but I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. Yeah, so thanks for having me. I was here about a year ago. Let me, I have a great presentation. Is riveting. You guys are gonna be just, I know, just like so excited about it. Okay, so this is school year 24-25, obviously. Do I need to point maybe this direction to? Mhm. Just.
Usually you though.
Well, we can. It is the big. Oh, good. Okay. All right. So last year I was here, I kind of did a thorough explanation of our methodology. So I don't want to go into a lot of that detail again. I think this image actually speaks for itself. Essentially, we start with your student data, create factors, and apply those factors to your student data to create the forecast. And I'm happy to answer any questions. We will go over those different factors, but we'll move on to the analysis of the student data. So what I'm going to talk about right now is your current student data. This isn't your forecast. This is just things that we have analyzed with your current student data. And when I say that, I mean student data that was provided to us by the school district on October 1st of 2024. Again, we verify the student data, make sure there's no duplicates. We geocode the students, essentially placing them on the map. We do that we have our current year and 3 historical years, and then divide this district into individual study areas. We then analyze what the comparison is between the students and your attendance areas, both where they reside and where they are enrolled. So you see here, obviously, where the majority of your students are. We create this matrix that just, once again, allows you to see where they reside. As you read across the rows, you're seeing where they reside. As you look down the columns, you see where they are enrolled. This looks a little bit different from last year because of Columbia being closed. Students were obviously redistributed to the other schools. So it does look a little different, especially Lincoln has the count of students that live within that boundary. 598 last year was much less. But other than that, it looks very similar to last year. Again, a utilization and transfer analysis shows what the residence column shows what your utilization would be if only your resident students were enrolled in the school. And then the enrollment is the utilization based on the students that are enrolled. And you do have a much, the distribution of the students, many more schools are in what we would consider an adequate level as they were redistributed. And you're also showing just student transfers. This is just mathematically based on the slide prior. So you can see where your resident students are transferring into and out of, and then obviously the schools that are getting those inter-district or out of district students as well. The middle school and high school combined, very similar, again, very similar to last year, and great information. If it interests you, it's in the report and you can peruse that. We'll get into this utilization map shows based on enrollment. Utilization just shows on the elementary side on the left what you're looking at as far as that enrollment utilization. The dark purple is the higher utilized, that green is more in the middle, and the yellow is a lower utilized school. On the right is your middle schools. The factors, okay, now we get into the good stuff. Okay, let me just put a little caveat. I've come to understand that not everybody really wants to talk about birth rates for an hour, except maybe me. So I'm going to condense it, even though I could and would be happy to answer your questions. But the information's here, and again, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I am going to I talked about birth rates a lot last year. I'll do my best not to bore you with it. But it is one of the factors. We do look at the birth counts that were provided by the Washington State Department of Health. The blue row across is your current school year. We call that our base year. And those were births 5 years prior. So the births are 572. Kindergarten class 535. That, as you see, the capture rate, that's a decrease in capture rate from what you have seen the previous 3 years, decreased down to 76%. We're going to take that into consideration as we produce that factor for the forecast, because we're starting to see a decline in the number of students you're capturing. But I also want you, wait, let me use this handy dandy if this works. Okay. Oh, let me also just point your eyes, if you see this, to the future numbers. Now, as you see up here, well, if you go way back to the births in 24-25 that affected school year 2019 and 2020, those births are in the 600. The next 4 years are mid to upper, maybe 500s. The next year, you're going to see a drop, 501, and then below 500 births. So we're going to see a drop next year and subsequent years. And this is happening around the country, as I have mentioned before, that the birth rates are lowering pretty much everywhere, unless there's really high growth in the area. Okay, just a graph kind of showing that same situation, and you can just see that trending decline. The tall dark blue numbers are the birth counts. The bar graphs below in the various colors, the gray is historical, that pink color is current, the blue is what we're forecasting for kindergarten numbers. And again, those match similar to the trend of your birth counts. Okay, I promise not to just dive into that too much, but sufficient, I think. The next factor is your mobility factor, which is an analysis of the grade progression from first to second, second to third, and so on. What is happening in those years? So if we're looking at 100 students in 24-25 in a particular school attendance area, not enrolled school, but living in that attendance area, and the mobility rate is 1.02, then we can anticipate 102 first graders. That's how that mobility works. What it shows here is you have good retention, especially in your lower grades and your upper grades. Those middle, happy clicking, those middle grades a little bit less, so could potentially alert you to maybe something that might be drawing students away in those grades. You do have high retention in your senior class, which might indicate that you have, maybe accreditation program or something. A lot of times we see lower rates with early graduation or dropouts in your 12th grade, and that's not happening here. So whatever is happening with your 12th grade, I applaud you. You're retaining those students. So I will just mention that based on last year, comparing the mobility from last year to this year, even though it's some good high mobility numbers, they did decrease a slight bit from last year. And your student yield factors, again, this is how many students we anticipate you generating for new housing. So the single family detached, 0.336. So we would anticipate for every 100 new single family detached homes that you would have or gain 34 K through 12 students. For single family detached, 23 up for apartments, and then multifamily attached would be approximately 29 students. We apply that to residential developments. There are 10 projects that are currently active in 4 of the elementary attendance areas, 509 units that are included in the forecast. 87% of those are apartments, have that little bit lower student yield factor. Also just wanted to mention, and we reanalyze these every year. We actually came out and counted the number of homes that had been completed, stopped by the district, got a picture. There's a little bit changed from last year, and this was discussion that we had up here in the Sky Ridge. Not quite sure what's happening there, but last year we did count those in the district in the forecast. This year we decided not to, because we don't know when those are going to start producing children. So, or generating children. Generating children. So we have them on an inactive kind of a watch right now. Okay, graph of showing where your, what elementary attendance areas your units are. The dark blue is your student, your single family detached. The apartments are those light blue, and those are in the Lewis and Clark Elementary attendance area. And there's quite a few apartments, but also a lower student generation rate or student yield factor. Apply all those all those factors together to come up with your district forecast. First, I just want to show you how those factors impact the forecast. So the mobility factor is that grade progression ratio. So as you see those jumps, for example, this top number of 435 students, we anticipate 451 students. That includes the mobility because you have those positive numbers going from kindergarten to first in your mobility. The housing projects also are distributed calculated K through 12. So all of those numbers also have student yield factors associated with them in the areas that we have residential developments. And then your birth rates, just to show you all of these numbers that are highlighted, these are all calculated based on birth rates. So when birth rates change, as they did last year, as we saw a lower capture rate, then we saw fewer kindergarten students than anticipated. We're going to calculate that a little bit differently because I think I said this last year, every year we're going to learn a little bit more from what's happening in your district. And we learned that that your capture rate for kindergarten is going down a little bit. So we want to anticipate that for the future. And it's not just kindergarten. A lot of times we talk about kindergarten, lower kindergarten class sizes, but it's not just kindergarten. It's kindergarten next year, the following year, kindergarten and first, then kindergarten first, second, third. So there is those tend to change as birth rates change or capture rates change. So just be mindful of those as we look at the forecast. So here you are. This page here is your resident student forecast. This column here is your current students, and we have your historical here, the previous 3 columns. So we have a total of 6,544 K through 12 students broken out by these different grade configurations over here. This conditional formatting just draws the eye to your highs and your lows. So your larger numbers obviously are the higher grade levels. And then as we get to your lower grade levels, you're getting those lower and lower numbers as we anticipate. So this future is based on obviously decreasing class sizes based on those lower kindergarten lower birth rates. Because remember, next year we have that drop from 572 birth counts 5 years prior to 501. That was a really large drop in births. And just to put that into perspective, you're losing 71 students in one grade level, right? So when we talk about how many students you may gain from a development in a single family detached home, you could gain 30, I think it was, what was it, 38, 34, whatever it was, in the 30s. That's gain K through 12 at the end. So if you have 100 home with 100 developments, if that development is going to take 3 years to complete, it's 33 across K through 12 across 3 years, as opposed to losing 71 in one grade level. So that's kind of puts that decrease into perspective, I hope. Okay, I think one other thing I'll just point out maybe is this, also it kind of shows you some highs and lows in your level. This 461 is a little bit lower class size. You're going to see that hit your middle school grades in a couple of years, which is why you're going to see a little bit of a drop in your middle school numbers down here. So the remaining students, which would be your out of district students, would be in this column here or in this chart table here. So there's obviously we don't apply the factors to your out of district students. So the total student count we had this year is the 7,095. You decreased 63 total students from last year, anticipating future decreases in these amounts down here. Just a graph showing those numbers showing, again, this is K through 12, showing those steady declining numbers. Again, potentially anticipating more if that development or any other development starts coming online or being approved. K through 5. As again, I was pointing out that 2026, that little drop here, which is why you see this, I'd say cliff right there. And your 9 through 12, it's going to take a little bit for those lower class sizes to hit your 9 through 12 or your high school grades, but it's coming, unfortunately. So a net change look, this is those individual study areas, but it allows you to look at areas that we're expecting growth in the blue or decline in the red. And this is, again, a net change in 5 years. And then if we just want to break that by grade configuration, we see that here. I tried to outline it in those attendance areas in black in case you really wanted to zoom in and see where those areas of growth and decline and neutral areas are. Based on the forecast, we see that Lewis and Clark will have a little bit of growth in that in the resident student population, the K through 5 resident student population, Lewis and Clark, and then the other schools showed various ranges of decline. And the light blue is 3 years, 5 years, and then 7 years, as you can see there. This is where I feel like I'm the bearer of bad news. I really do. I apologize, and I also sound, happy. I don't mean to do that. When I deliver bad news, I feel like I should be like, anyway, I do. I recognize the struggle. Middle school and high school here. You do see the Foothills Middle School with both the 3 and 5 years having pretty stable resident student population before we see a decline there. Here are the numbers in summary that we already covered, and some just key items. That resident student population is expected to decline just by 1.5% next year. Projections indicate a total loss of 11% by 2029. Declining birth rates and a lower kindergarten capture rate are contributing to smaller kindergarten class sizes. Mobility rates do indicate a high retention and inward mobility across many of your grade levels, so that's great. Lewis and Clark attendance area does see some growth in the resident student population. All of the other elementary schools are projected to decrease, and middle school grades are projected to experience a short-term decline, and then with 2.8% decrease, and then 9.3% reduction by 2029. High school, Wenatchee High School projected to experience a gradual decrease in its 9-12 student population over the next couple of years. 3 years, it's expected to be down by 4.1%. Followed by a more significant decline after that. And that's what I have for you. I know that was a lot of information to digest. Do you have any questions for me?
Let's say I saw like the flat kinder capture rate, which is like also like a scary thing to put on a slide. Like, get those kindergartners. But like I saw you said it was declining, but then it showed on the graph that it was flat at 78%.
So yeah, so what I was saying was that I wanted to take into consideration that there is a decline in the capture rate. At this point, we don't know if it's going to be 76%, if it's going to go back up to 81%. So I wanted to take into consideration that capture rate instead of a declining, because if I don't take capture rate into consideration, it's going to project everything at that 76%, which I think is it's going to be a very conservative number, so it could be lower than that. But I also wanted to be fair and say, well, it also could bounce back up. This could be an anomaly year, the 76%, because the previous 3 years were right around that 80%. So the 78% was to show that in anticipation of a change, we're going to be a little bit conservative until next year when we know if this is a new trend or if we're bouncing back up or if this is an anomaly.
Got it.
So good question. To be fair, it could go either way, right?
But that was just like, here's the middle ground because we've seen fluctuation in the previous years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Great question. Thanks for pointing that out.
So one of the questions I have is when you're looking at future growth and development, are you looking at just developments that are maybe approved through the planning agencies now, or are you looking at areas? Because I'm surprised to see decline forecasted for the Sunny Slope area when we know there's orchards going out, there's sewer going in. So there's going to be quite a bit more development generally in the area. Maybe not 2 years, but probably 5 to 7 years. And same with Malaga area. We know that new water infrastructure and major infrastructures that make development more attractive to that area are going to be coming in the next, maybe not next year or 2 years, but 5 years, 7 years.
Yeah.
Does any of this take into account that, or is that just kind of a, let's wait and see further down the road?
That's a great question. It's very scary to me to put in a forecast when we don't know if it's been approved or when it's going to happen. So we contact the city. I have a team that does the residential development research that contacts the city and tries to go through meeting notes to see what has been approved. If they have been approved and we see ground moving, then we know that this is coming online. If it's not quite an approval stage yet, or we can't get enough information on when we can make those projections, we don't add them, which is why in the report, you'll see other developments that we have listed that are kind of on a watch list that we can add future. I will say, if that's a request that the board has to anticipate so that you can see when future development might come online, we can work together collaboratively to decide when we want to add those to the forecast. But if we don't know for sure, then what you're going to see is maybe a spike in 2030 that may not happen until 2033. And so it also kind of might falsely indicate what's happening. So yes, this is mostly reliant on what is actually happening and been approved.
And then when you say you go to the city, are you also going to the county? Because we have some of
City
the
and
area-
county,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. We scour websites and agendas, and then we drive it. We try to, we try to be very, very thorough. It's one of the things that we're very proud of is our thorough residential development research. Not to say that isn't something we might miss, but at the end of our research, we also create this map and forecast that we send to the leadership and say, do you have any other idea of developments that might be coming online that you want to have in this forecast? So we try to even, collaborate with the district as well.
I have a comment on that.
Mhm.
I think it's dangerous not to do what you do, which is take stuff that we actually turn the dirt and where there's planning permission. And I think the right way to handle it is that is the forecast. And you know that there may be things you haven't captured. And then you look at what Julie's talking about, projected economic development that may or may not happen in the political arena as well. And then that affects your risk analysis and your willingness to take risk using the base estimate and making plans off it. And I do think if you mix those two together, there's a considerable danger of conning yourself, because with that, I think there's two things. One is a forecast. We know we suspect it's pessimism and optimism.
Mhm.
And then we know what are the factors that could tilt us to take a greater or lesser risk in planning on what the variance might be from that forecast.
And that's great feedback. And we're happy I'm happy to create that forecast if that's what the board wants, to eliminate some of those that doesn't have ground moving. The ones that do and are starting to build, we have some great satellite imagery called Near Map that we can actually go and see what happened at a certain date last year and compare how many roofs were on last year to how many at that time to how many roofs are on this year. And we can go back for as long as this plane has flown over the area. And as well as coming out every year and doing this development drive where we can say, last year we had this many homes and this year we have this many homes. So we can anticipate, or we hope to anticipate. We also go into call developers, go into apartment offices and ask them. So we do try to be thorough, but if the district and the board would prefer us to only do what we know with ground moving and homes being built and leave the others, then that's your prerogative, and that we can do that with that sort of indication in the report.
Leave, that's what you said you are doing. You're only doing what?
We're doing yes, we're doing the ones that are actively building. And then the ones that if we have good approval and we have good information that we've been able to gather from developers or on site, then we can anticipate those. We anticipate those as well.
Yeah. And also so that you don't end up spinning in circles a lot. I think if each year you have an awareness of what might be out there, you could talk to the superintendent or before the board, I think, and based on that, decide how much further to dig into it rather than dig into it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I have one question, which I don't think you will want to answer, but I ask it anyway. For a long time, we were 2 or 3 years behind in the birth rates. And so we were looking at what looked like a fairly variable, but a regression line with a disruption at COVID. It's almost on this latest data as if COVID is a step function, not a disruption followed by a new regression line. In other words, any comment?
That it is I think if I understand your question right, and a comment about that is a lot of people thought that there would be more kids during or after COVID, and that's not what we're seeing. That's not what we saw. As far as, I think what you're talking about, that step, a lot of what we saw with forecasts was like that, where we said, we had anticipated or been forecasting a particular trend, let's say a downward trend. And then because of COVID, we actually saw that step, but then we saw that same trend. It was down because students never came back, or some students didn't come back after COVID. But you did see that trend, that step, but it does eventually follow that same trend.
No, but what I'm seeing is you've got a trend followed by COVID, which was a drop, what I call a step function. And then instead of continuing a trend, possibly with a recovery, you now have a horizontal line. And is a step function possibly related to a change in culture and demographics of a different kind?
That's a great question.
I mean, I expected you to say, I don't know, but I wondered whether I was hoping you would say people are talking about it.
You would, I think we talk about birth rates a lot, but I honestly don't know.
Martin has good questions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it makes me go, let's
Yes.
talk about this a little bit more when I don't bore the rest of the room. But yeah, interesting concepts. And I think the birth rates are very valuable to be looking at and understanding. That's why I spend so much time on them.
If no other board members have questions, I just want to thank Marcy. Thank you for coming. Thank you for doing the work that you do. The partnership and collaboration that you provide us offers us another layer of validity to the projection work that our finance team does. And it's challenging, and there are a lot of variables that go into those inputs. And so we appreciate you and your teamwork on that, because it helps us have a better understanding and project for our next year's budget. So Thank you very much for that work. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, who's ready to talk some policy? No,
Everyone.
okay, everyone, okay.
No, they all
right.
left.
We're going, okay, we're gonna jump into it. We have 3 policies to talk about this evening. The first one is 5005, employment and volunteers, disclosures, certification, requirements, assurances, and approval. This is WASDA has revised this policy to provide definition and clarity around unsupervised children. And they actually give a modified definition that describes, really looks at the different volunteers in your system, and are they truly unsupervised? Do they have unsupervised access of students or not? So the policy updates that definition. It also describes the approval process for employment and volunteers. And we actually had more comment before we met on this policy, and Maria had some questions about what our procedures were, and had some comments based on where Wenatchee Valley College had gone in some of these cases too. So we had some good conversation, but it wasn't necessarily pertaining to policy. It was more like what actually is our volunteer process and policy. So I'll turn it over to our policy team here to see if there's any other comments you want to add.
Just for clarification, unsupervised staff and volunteers, not unsupervised children.
Oh, yes. Oh, unsupervised access to children. Yes. Thank you. We can't have unsupervised staff either. I mean, come on. We know how that turns out. No, I'm just kidding.
We leave the kids to watch them.
All right. Any other thoughts or comments from the rest of the board, perhaps? Okay. Move on to policy 3210, a non-discrimination policy. which outlines the work needed for the district's non-discrimination statement. It outlines model handbook requirements for all schools, addresses student rights to be discrimination-free, and describes the complaint procedure, compliance officer, and training. We had some conversations. We had a little bit of conversations, but we're talking more about the youth groups in number 3 on the first page where there's a strike through. We also had some conversations around the wording in the second sentence under the discriminatory harassment. But other than that, we moved this policy forward as well. Any thoughts to share? Nope. Okay. Any questions over here? I've got my team on the policy committee over here on the left, and I've got everyone over
Yeah, I would
here.
just say, I don't think it's substantively changed really any of the requirements we're familiar with. We've kind of reorganized and restated a lot of things, so just lots of red lines there, but relatively straightforward.
Thank you for that. Okay, we'll move on to 5010, which is also non-discrimination and affirmative action. This describes the district's non-discrimination policy and equal access for employment. It gives examples of employment discrimination as well as discriminatory harassment. The section on affirmative action has been rewritten, as well as the complaint procedure and training piece. Sometimes it's hard to find it when you're going through it the first time, but it's there. And so we described what, the Wenatchee School District has an affirmative action plan. We fixed a typo and had some conversation about equal employment plans from the district level and what that was about. And then we moved forward.
I believe this one was also vetted by our legal counsel, correct?
I'm not sure. Kim, do you remember if this was? Yes, it was. Okay.
What popped out
Right.
when we reviewed is the affirmative action, given that that was what?
Yep.
Last year, 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Right. Any thoughts or questions? Okay, we will move these 3 to second read next week, April 1st. Okay, excellent.
All right, and it's back to you, superintendent report.
We are moving and grooving. Let me get to my other notes here. Thank you very much. So we'll start off. Tonight is the last night for one of our board members, Miranda. We want to thank you so much for volunteering to support our students, our schools, our staff, and our families through your efforts as a school board director. The school board director role is an undertaking that comes with huge responsibility, and sometimes you might feel like there's a target on your back. But it does come with those huge responsibilities. We appreciate that. We know you did not volunteer for the glamour and the prestige that you get when you become a school board director, but you did it for the students and you did it for your passion for education that makes an impact on our community. So we appreciate that. We wish you the very best in your next chapter and hope that you will come and visit us often. You're welcome. And let me give you this little memento. Excellent. So Maya, I'm glad you're here because I have on our notes here how amazing Romeo and Juliet was. And I just have to share like the way you students brought the story to life, not only with inflection and tone, but with nonverbal language, because Romeo and Juliet's hard. And it's hard to get, understand the language is one thing, but also the humor when we're supposed to laugh, the drama and all of the anguish that is in the play. So it was wonderful, had a great experience, and we applaud your efforts. Thanks for being here. Absolutely. Also, the ribbon cutting event last Tuesday was amazing. And so I want to thank the board, the community, our staff, and our students for that great event. It was a heartwarming experience. And there's been some great games that have been played on that field since then. So that's wonderful. Special thanks to Diana for planning, organizing, and full implementation of that great event. The one thing that I shared with her that I felt that was powerful is first game of the season, varsity game. We've got tons of people there, but the way that she planned and organized the event to highlight different parts of our school community brought different folks to the game that wouldn't normally be there. So I want to thank you for that. That was very intentional and worked out really good. We had an amazing learning walk at Wenatchee High School last week. So our school board joined up with our learning and teaching team and the Wenatchee High School administration. We got into 6 different classrooms for the learning walks. We were able to observe in different classrooms and watch high quality instruction happen right in front of us. These trips are fantastic. They allow our school board to see professional development in action and the outcomes of that professional development, learning and teaching goals, and our strategic plan in work. So that was fantastic. Thank you, Heidi, for organizing and planning that. I have to share, on Saturday morning, I was at Wenatchee High School auditorium with 93 Knowledge Bowl teams from across the state. An amazing collection of brain power, I must say. But if you've never been to a Knowledge Bowl state tournament, different teams take on different themes. And so we had a cowboy team, that we had an aluminum foil team the year before, but we didn't this year. So I wondered where they went. We had Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and just like all these great, amazing themes. So it's fun to welcome all of these teams and individuals to Wenatchee High School and then just call out the different groups. And the best part was right before the meeting started, James Wallace put on Village People YMCA, and literally the entire auditorium is singing and going through the motions before they had a great beginning to an awesome day. So that was fun. And then Maria and I just came from earlier this evening, the opening dinner for the 25th annual Mariachi Festival. 25th annual Mariachi Festival, like that is it's incredible. So students are in class Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Friday night is the student, family, community event at the auditorium. And then the big concert is Saturday night. And I believe there are still some tickets left. So grab your tickets while you can. So anyway, thank you very much.
Now, okay. So we're moving on to forward communication. Martin, dare I have you start? All right.
10 days ago, I was at the Title I Part C State Advisory Committee, otherwise known as about the migrant program. And I guess I thought about saying that migrant is not the same as immigration, but the fear permeates that, and it is a serious issue. But then being much more cheerful, it was a very productive meeting, a lot of work similar to what we do, looking at how that cadre of students are performing, what can be done to close gaps in the SBA and things like that. There are 2 Wenatchee parents also, apart from me, on the state committee, and 3 of us were able last Thursday to give a report back to the COPAC meeting here downstairs in the district, so bringing back information from the state. And then family night is this Thursday, coming up again. So the last one was very, very successful, and I assume this one will be too.
Go for it.
I wanted to say congrats to all our high school athletics, though I couldn't be there for a lot of it. I did see reviews on the news and online, and also our clubs and activities. And so did phenomenal in the course of the last 2 weeks. I wanted to give my thank you to you, Dr. Callahar, and members of the board and the cabinet for these last couple years. It is drinking out of a fire hose for the first few months, and I did tackle on a couple additional projects in the first year or so, but it's been very fulfilling and very rewarding at the end of the day. I am sad to leave. It was something I did not want to do or want to choose to do, but it's just how all the cards had laid, and I took the opportunity when I could. And I think this will be a good chapter moving forward, but I'm very sad to leave, and I will come back to come visit, but I'm very hopeful and optimistic for this board. I don't say it enough among other colleagues and other districts when I've done my legislative committee work that Wenatchee has done some great improvement in the last couple of years, and I'm very optimistic on what's going to happen. Oh, thanks. So yes, I thank you all, and you guys do all amazing work.
Thank you. Maria.
It has been a busy last couple weeks. Let's see, we started out last week with the board workshop. I attended the softball ribbon cutting, and I do want to commend and recognize Diana. It was really neat to see former softball alumni, our current and former Panther softball fast pitch girls, players from Wenatchee Valley College, our youth softball, Sun Devils, but also baseball, the youth choir. So there were so many aspects of it that represented our community and what we're about. So kudos to that. Great game. I decided to go back again for another game on Thursday. Like you said, learning walks on Friday, we met for the policy committee. The Mariachi Festival kickoff dinner today, which was fabulous, but unfortunately we had to leave halfway through that. To get here, yep. Yeah, on time. Yeah. We missed dinner, but we got the best part, which was the music. Again, the concert I'm planning on attending on Saturday, and then on Sunday is soccer at Foothills. So a lot of stuff happening. I want to just comment a little bit on Martin's point, which kind of made me think a little bit about Marcy. Did I get that right? Marcy's presentation, because there is a lot of has nothing to do with migrant or immigration. I do wonder in the next 4 years if this study is going to change due to the fear and what we're seeing right now with immigration. Wenatchee is not exempt from what's happening around the state, around the country. So I'm really curious as to how that might change in this demographic study. Thank you, Martin, for the continued support of our Latino community, the district, and just embracing our families during these challenging times and letting them know that we're here to protect our students. We put students first. And then and also I think with everything this week, how do we also do that same type of embrace onto our staff with the whole Department of Education, our families who have students that may be impacted or the fear that their services may be impacted. So how do we wrap around and ensure that across the spectrum that we're continuing to put students first. It's not just immigration, it's, our special education students, our title students. So this, let's continue the good work.
All right. Well, it has been a busy couple of weeks. I want to thank you, Kim, for making sure I could attend the workshop last week from the airport. Saddled with flight delays, actually going with one of our local soccer teams down to Phoenix to come back with the trophy. So that was a good reason to be stuck. But thank you for making that happen. I appreciate that presentation. Enjoyed the learning walk last week for the high school. So I appreciate the high school teachers taking time out of their day and all of our administrators that took us around and helped us through that process. It's enlightening, fascinating to see what's going on, and nice to get into the schools when we are able to and being intentional about what we're looking for and things. So I appreciate that. Miranda, thank you for your service to the board. We had a pretty rough year this last year, so it's good to have a solid mind in the trenches with everybody. So I've appreciated working with you on the board. Last piece, I just want to speak a little to the comments that we received today. I have kids that are in a lot of these organizations, and over the course of the last few weeks, I started hearing rumblings about how do fees get adopted? Where did this come from? This is new, this is different. And so I was sort of knew this was coming because I started looking into it myself, saying, well, I think that's something the board does, but I don't remember doing anything that would change things drastically or dramatically or anything. So going back through things, I was a little surprised to see sort of how our new fee schedule came about, and with not a lot of explanation to us, kind of snuck in some ways. So I do think even if they were fees that we've had forever, assessing them in a new way maybe did require some additional communication. I can't see where it was clear to us about some of the changes or the rationale for some of it. And so I would like to see us maybe take it to the policy committee with more information and find out what was the history of these, how does this actually work? Because my own trail of it is I can't see where we did anything from my time on the board until just this June, and we get with all of our fees, kind of a schedule that's just, hey, we're not supposed to make a profit. So, nonchalantly, part of the consent agenda, we adopt these fees, not knowing whether these had or hadn't been in existence, and then the impacts that they have now being apparently assessed on our user groups, because it is going to create a barrier. And especially if it is something unique to other facilities in our community. It's true, if we're charging fees, then the facility should be nicer or whatnot. And a lot of these are our taxpayers, and these are their fields that we manage and monitor. So I would like more information about how that works. And I think we all need it, because we are going to be asked to approve fees again. I can't say, hey, let's do a moratorium until we figure this out. But in my own looking at what's gone down, I'm not super comfortable with it, and how it was presented to us. So I would like more information. I'm troubled by comments that the invoicing is not clear when our fee schedule appears to be broken down. So it's like, how can we break down a fee schedule but not give them an invoice that shows what the corresponding fees are for? I don't know this, haven't seen one of them, but it is a concern to me, because I think ultimately the ones that suffer are the students that participate and their families in these events. And I agree, we can't give labor and services for free. Absolutely not. And that's why I want to see, where did this come from? Because I tried to go back through every agenda I could find, and I couldn't find anywhere where we, as part of our fee adoption schedule, specifically approved the athletic fees, aside from like maybe major events. And so to see it kind of stuck in, I think and I don't want to say stuck in, I don't think the district intended to do anything, underhanded or anything, but it was just, I would have liked more signaling that this was something new or would be enforced new, because now we're really seeing the impacts on our community. And as I kind of go back through the record, it's not clear to me either. And so I think a good place to maybe look at that would be either policy committee or budget committee, where we could just do a little bit more of a dive so we can figure out, what is fair and reasonable to everybody. So.
Kind of want to comment off of that, because at no time, I think, and thank you for addressing it, but as a board member, it's our responsibility to review the board packet in detail, and to say that it was snuck in is a little bit, especially as somebody that's been on the policy committee, is I don't feel comfortable saying that, hey, they tried to sweep something under the rug. And I don't know what the solution is, because I also started requesting information on this, but I do know that we are a state agency. We cannot give out state resources, and we have that responsibility for our taxpayers. I also know that state resources. I know that wages have gone up. Which, as we know, with facility rentals, there is a need for custodial. If anybody knows about the workforce right now, it's really hard to find custodians for our district alone. Kelly's over here nodding. And Wenatchee School District is not the only one in this situation. In my other world, we revised our fee schedule as well. Again, it was almost like we were giving away state resources. Yeah, and so I think we need to navigate this. I really appreciate Mike Osborne, who presented solutions to the issue. I really appreciate that approach. How do we work together? But like I said, at no point, and I was aware that we had changed the fee schedule. I'm sorry, but I just don't feel like it was snuck in to try to deceive the board.
And
I might
said, I'm
just
not
jump
saying-
in here, just because we're turning board communication into another discussion. I think we have another meeting next week. I think this is something we can add to the agenda if you guys are comfortable with that. But like, I agree that this is something we need to address. I think obviously we had a good community turnout. And I think that we, as a district, have a commitment to sports and to utilizing our facilities in a way that works for everyone, while also, paying salaries of, like you said, custodial. But we could rapidly turn this into a discussion that I think I know there's lots of people in the community that would
be interested in hearing this. And if this is not on the agenda, I don't want that to be now. So thank you, both of you, for you. But I think if everyone's okay, I think I'm gonna, all right, cool. Oh, and now it's my turn to talk for real. First of all, thank you, Miranda. It's been wonderful. Best of luck in Tri-Cities. And then high school learning walk was great. I sat in a French class and just had that moment of like, I didn't prepare. And then we also went to a class that had a movie, and I forgot that I was like evaluating the classroom. So it is fun to be around people who are actively learning again and reminded like, oh, this is a challenge and exciting. So I can see why teachers love to come every day and say, oh, it's a new thing. Then facility committee. So we had a really good turnout at the last facility committee meeting. Did a lot of work, and I will absolutely, I'm going to stare right at the community. Look at the website. It's I write it down. It's in here somewhere. Oh, departments tab, facilities and capital projects. That's where the facility committee information is, or you can go in the search bar, just type in facilities committee. But we are doing work. It was a unanimous decision to address like a lot of the issues at the high school. So I think we're kind of moving in a direction that feels like we are reaching consensus and kind of having a plan. So if you're interested, you should check it out. And then that's it. Thanks everyone for coming. We're adjourned.